Are you tired of feeling like tracking every single calorie is the only way to lose weight? What if I told you there's a much simpler, less time-consuming way to hit your weight loss goals without obsessing over numbers? In this episode, I'm going to give you 5 proven strategies that will help you shed pounds and stay consistent without feeling food deprived. By the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly what to focus on in order to make real progress without the stress of calorie counting. Before we dive in, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. All right, you guys, I'm excited about today's episode about weight loss made simple, 5 proven strategies. Now, before I dive into the 5 proven strategies, I actually want to start today's episode by saying what today's episode is not, and then we'll dive into what it is. What it is not is this. I'm not saying that weight loss is the ultimate definition of whether or not you are a healthy individual, because it's not. There are so many better determinants of whether or not you are healthy as a person. And I think us as a society, we place too much of an emphasis on what does the number on the scale say? How much do you weigh? Like, that is not the best determinant of whether or not you're a healthy person. And I think we oftentimes overly obsess about that number. But what I will say is that there are a lot of us who have excessive body fat or more body fat than we want on our bodies, and we want to lose it. Now, again, you want to make sure that you don't have an unhealthy view of what that looks like. Generally speaking, guys, if you're anywhere between 10, 20, maybe 21, 22%, you're going to be pretty darn healthy. Ladies, anywhere between maybe 25, 35%, you're going to be relatively healthy. And so, of body fat percentage wise. And so, make sure you don't have an unrealistic view of what healthy should be for you. But so, like, again, a lot of us maybe have some excessive body fat, and so we want to lose weight. And so I want to make sure I provide you with the strategies to do so. And before I go into the strategies, I oftentimes like to use analogies. And I'm going to dive into a financial analogy here in a second. But in order to lose weight, the thing that is required is a caloric deficit, meaning you need to be burning more calories than you are taking in. That is required in order to lose weight and to lose body fat. So if that is the end goal, to be burning more than we're taking in, we need to be getting there somehow. Now, the most predictable way in order to do that is to be counting every single calories that comes in and, to the best of your ability, estimating how many calories are going out. And if you are doing that, that is the most predictable way to lose weight. But at the same time, when you're counting every single calorie that comes in, that can be very time inducive. And a lot of us don't have that kind of time. And a lot of us don't have that kind of time, but still want to lose weight and still want to lose body fat. So how do we get that done? Well, let's go into the analogy here. A lot of people want to save money. How do you save money? Well, you are spending less than you are making. And if you're spending less than you're making, then you're saving money. What's the best way to predictably do that? To track every single dollar that comes in and to track every single dollar that goes out. If you do that, then you are more likely, more predictably able to save money. But again, a lot of people are too lazy to track every single dollar that comes in and every single dollar that goes out. But that's not the only way to save money. What are some other ways to save money? What are some other things that you could track in order to save money? Well, you could say, I'm only going to go out to dinner 4 times this month. You could say, I'm going to limit myself to only shopping for 3 items of clothing per month. You could say, I'm going to stop buying items X, Y, and Z at the grocery store that you maybe don't even really need. Those things are going to be a little bit easier to remember, and they're going to be a little bit easier to execute upon because there's less things to track, and it's less time, and it's less focus, and it's less energy and attention. So it's a simpler way to think about it, but it can still get you to the end goal of spending less than you make, therefore saving money. And similarly with nutrition, you can track certain things that actually get you to a calorie deficit without having to track every single calorie that comes inside your body. So that's what this episode is all about. It's what are some of those things that we can track that are going to reliably and predictably get us to a calorie deficit so that we can achieve our weight loss goals and lose body fat, but without the time investment of having to track every single calorie that comes inside of our body. And these 5 different options are options that I've used with over 800 people that I've had in the 10-week transformation and have proven to be successful. And the last thing I want to say before I dive into number 1 is if you do all 5 of these, that's great. That will most reliably get you to that calorie deficit. But if you just do one of them, that'll still be something that can lead you to potentially being in a calorie deficit. But the more that you do, the more likely it is that you're in a calorie deficit. And this isn't the only way. These are just 5 ways that I have used with clients that I have coached. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first one is tracking your protein, and tracking protein in the amount of 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight per day. Now, why protein? A lot of you guys who are listening to this are either in the 10-week transformation and hear me talk about protein, or you hear maybe other people talk about the importance of protein. Why is protein something that will lead to us to potentially being in a caloric deficit and therefore allowing us to lose weight? Well, there's a few different reasons. The first off is protein helps us to build and or maintain muscle, and muscle is very metabolically active. What does that mean? That means our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories that we burn while we're at rest, the more muscle we have, the higher that is. So if I, right here sitting today at 165 pounds, am sitting next to somebody else who is 165 pounds, but I have more muscle mass than they do, I'm going to be burning more calories just sitting here than they are because I have more muscle. And so protein allows us to maintain and or build muscle. That's the first reason why protein is important. Second reason that is maybe the least important of the reasons, but it's still valuable, is the thermic effect of food of protein. So when it comes to the amount of calories that you're burning, one of the categories is called thermic effect of food. And so basically anytime we eat food, our body needs to break down the food into usable forms so that we can actually use it as energy and different things going on inside of our body. And so protein is actually the most difficult of the macronutrients to break down. There's carbs, there's fats, there's protein, and protein has the highest thermic effect of food of about 20 to 30%. And so what does that mean? That means, okay, if I am intaking 100 calories of protein, then in order to break down that protein, I'm going to then be burning 20 to 30 calories of that of the protein essentially that I digested. So 100 in, let's just say 25 out, that gives me a net of 75 calories. And so when you eat more protein, you're actually burning a little bit more calories as well. The third reason is the role that protein has on our fullness and the role that protein has on our satiety. I mean, just think about eating a chicken breast versus eating a bag of chips. Which one takes longer? Which one is more filling? Obviously eating the chicken breast. So protein is going to be the macronutrient that oftentimes takes the longest to eat. Obviously depends on the type of protein that you're having, but also allows you to stay fuller for longer. And one of the biggest challenges that we have when it comes to being in a calorie deficit is hunger. And so if we can fight against hunger a little bit, then that's going to help us. The fourth reason is that when you eat protein, you're not eating some other things. And so when you eat something like a chicken breast, you're maybe not eating something that is processed or that's a packaged food. So when you're eating a higher quality protein source, that makes it so that you're not having a higher calorie, less nutrient dense type food that can easily shoot up calories pretty quickly. And the last thing I'll say about protein is it's pretty easy to track. Whether it's a thing of ground turkey or some chicken breasts or some Greek yogurt or some ground beef, like it's pretty easy to track how much protein you're having on a daily basis with just a little bit of attention. So it's relatively easy to track. A couple of things that I want to say about protein is caution is you don't want to overeat protein and throw yourself out of a calorie deficit. So if you're just trying to hammer protein, and you end up still just eating too much and not being in a calorie deficit, then you're not going to be losing weight. Like it said, it goes back to earlier. One of the benefits of having protein is it makes you full so that you don't overeat on calories. And then lastly, just as a reminder, the amount that I would recommend is anywhere between 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So for example, if you currently weigh 170, but you want to weigh 160, then you would do 160 times 0.7 and then 160 times 1, which would be 160. And that range would be your goal on a daily basis. So the first recommendation of something that's easy to track, less time inducive, that would lead you to potentially being in a calorie deficit is to track your protein. The second is to track your fiber. And again, if you have done a 10-week transformation, you're in a 10-week transformation, you've heard me talk about fiber a lot. Maybe you've heard other people talk about fiber. Why is fiber something that's important? A few different reasons. Number one, fiber and satiety, same thing as protein. Fiber is a type of food that will make you more full, therefore fighting off any kind of hunger that you might have down the road, therefore making sure that you're eating less than you're actually burning. Yeah. The second reason is fibrous foods, I should say, are the most nutrient dense foods most often. So if you get a packaged food, most packaged food has very little to zero fiber, because in order to make it something that lasts and has a long shelf life, they remove fiber and they add additional preservatives, etc., inside of that thing. And so foods that are high in fiber are often the most real foods, the least processed foods, and the most nutrient dense foods. Therefore, just making them the healthiest foods kind of around. And then the last thing that I would say is somewhat in the same vein as that is the fact that only healthy foods contain fiber. Like if you have the goal of hitting, let's say 30 grams of fiber every single day, then you're focused on, okay, what foods have high amounts of fiber? I'm going to eat those foods. You're not going to be eating foods that are high in calories. You're not going to be eating fast foods. You're not going to be eating processed foods, because none of that stuff has fiber in it. And so if you're looking for fibrous foods, you're not going to be finding fiber in some of those other types of foods. So the fact that fiber is only in foods that are usually nutrient dense and lower calorically is a good sign and will keep you in a calorie deficit. And then lastly, like I said, with protein, it's easier to track. It's something that is on most food labels. You can Google things pretty easily with vegetables and fruits if there's no food label for those items that you get at the grocery store. So it's something that's relatively easy to track as well. And then lastly, I'll finish with how much fiber should you be consuming on a daily basis. To be more specific, think 15 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories that you consume, or just to keep it simple, anywhere between probably 25 to 40 grams of fiber would be a good goal for most people to hit on a daily basis. I really think that these are the two most powerful levers in order to pull. It's not tracking everything, but it does take some effort. But once you get used to it, I promise you it gets much, much easier. And once you get used to it, you don't necessarily have to track it all the time, but you know, like, okay, this is a pretty high protein meal. This is a pretty high fiber meal. This is going to be good. And so you have a greater sense of when you're hitting close to the mark on those versus when you're not. So those are the first two. We have 3, 4, and 5 coming up. Number 3 is you can think about eating 12 to 18 meals each week that are prepared by you. So let's say, for example, you have 21 meals a week, assuming 3 meals a day for 7 days a week, that goes to 21. So what I'm saying here is that can 12 out of 21 or up to 18 out of 21 be prepared by you? Now, why is that important? Usually, when you prepare meals at home, they're going to be healthier than if you go out to eat and get fast food or even go to the restaurant. So number 1, they're usually healthier. And number 2, they're usually lower in calories because you know exactly what's going into the food. When you go to the restaurant, when you go to a fast food, they put a lot of things in there, a lot of oils, a lot of butters, stuff like that, that will easily bump up the calorie content of the food that you're consuming. And so I found that if somebody just focuses on eating more meals at home and less meals out, then that will lead them to be in a calorie deficit. So if you can think 12 out of 21, maybe all the way up to 18 out of 21 prepared meals by you each week, that will something that will potentially lead you to a calorie deficit and therefore body fat loss. Number 4 is consuming anywhere between just 5 to 8 alcoholic drinks or less per week. Now, let's be clear. If you're somebody who doesn't drink at all, I'm not saying to drink 5 to 8 drinks. In my experience with most of the people that I work with, they consume some alcohol. They are working on making sure that it is more refined on a weekly basis. And what I have found for me personally, as somebody who does drink alcohol, and for my clients, a lot of the people that I work with, is that if they can stick to somewhere between 5 to 8, maybe 3 to 8, maybe 2 to 8, depending on the person, that's going to be something that allows them to make progress on their weight loss goals, because 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories. So it's pretty calorically dense and they don't really have that much nutrients in them. And so one low calorie beer might be 100 calories. And if you have 5 beers in a day, that's 500 calories, which is an amount of a relatively standard meal size. And so it can easily get you out of a calorie deficit. Now, again, alcohol is very personal. You mainly want to come from a standpoint of what is a realistic amount of alcohol that I can consume that is healthier for me than what I'm currently consuming. If you're currently somebody who has 14 drinks a week, don't try to go down to 5. That's probably going to be relatively difficult. Maybe go down to 12, maybe 10, maybe 8, but make an improvement based off of where you are today more than anything. Now, before I get into point number 5, which is a really important point, I want to let you guys know about the Fat Loss Forever workshop that I'm running on Monday, February 24th. This is a workshop to end diet confusion. I'm providing you with a free 1-hour interactive masterclass to help you know exactly what and how much to eat for sustainable fat loss. We're obviously going a lot through some of the things today, but we go into much greater depth and make it much more personal to you on the workshop. And you can register for free by going to nickcarrier.com/workshop. There's going to be a link in the description below, but nickcarrier.com/workshop, and it's Monday, February 24th from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time. Now, if you can't make that time, still register, and I'll be sending out the recording to everybody who had registered. But look, losing body fat is hard, and losing it and keeping it off is even harder. And it's frustrating because a lot of people can make great progress in a couple months, but then they throw it away in just a few weeks. But this doesn't have to be your story, because when you know better, you do better. And in this Fat Loss Forever workshop, I'll teach you how to achieve your dream body with a proven systematic approach. So Monday, February 24th, 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time. Register today at nickcarrier.com/workshop. Now, into the 5th and final thing that will make it easier for you to track in order to get you to a calorie deficit and therefore lose weight is thinking about eating no more than 2 to 5 snacks per week. Now, let me be very clear on this. Snacking is not bad. Snacking is not inherently bad. A lot of snack foods are just not very nutrient dense, and they're high in calories. And oftentimes people are kind of mindlessly snacking, and they don't even really realize how many calories they might be consuming. But again, if you have 3 meals and then you have 3 different snacks throughout the day, it's still possible to be in a calorie deficit. And for some people, that's going to be a great way to approach fat loss. But when I had a cut goal myself, and with a lot of the clients that I work with, I've just found that can be a very simple way and a very simple rule to help cut down a little bit on calories. And so if you're somebody who snacks, then maybe cutting it down to eating no more than 2 to 5 snacks per week, that could be great for you. If you only want 1 snack per week, or if you want 0 snacks all week long, then that can be a useful tool as well. The last thing I would say about that is if you are the type of person who does not snack at all, and then you're ravishly hungry when you go into a meal, and then you overconsume during your meal, then that's probably not a good strategy. If you're somebody who likes to leverage snacking, so you go into a meal hungry but not crazy hungry, and therefore you temper the portion size that you have, then snacking is something that could be useful for you. So keep that in mind, but these are some great strategies that you can apply that are a lot easier than calorie counting and still reliably will allow you to lose body fat. Now, again, we've got that Fat Loss Forever workshop coming up soon, and it will help you end diet confusion. Will allow you to learn how much and what you should be eating for your body type and for your goals. And you can register for free today by going to nickcarrier.com/workshop. Again, nickcarrier.com/workshop on Monday, February 24th from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time. I can't wait to see you guys there. Other than that, I hope you guys learned something today. I hope you took some notes. I hope you found one of the 5 or all 5 or multiple of the 5 helpful and something that you feel like you can implement in order to achieve your fat loss goals. And again, if you liked the episode, click the follow button on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button down below. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope this, more than anything, helps you achieve your health and fitness goals and ultimately gets you closer and closer to your best you.